The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wide enough to hold a small city. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked across the polished floor, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Around her, representatives from 47 alien species sat in their designated areas, watching her every move. Sarah had been Earth's voice in this chamber for 3 years. She had seen the Council make decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. Today felt different. The air itself seemed heavy with tension. At the center of the chamber sat the 3 most powerful members of the Council. War Prime Kethaval of the militaristic Kethvar Empire towered over everyone else, his 6 arms crossed over his armored chest. His species had conquered half the galaxy through pure force, and they never let anyone forget it. Next to him, Prime Minister Veltora of the bureaucratic Velthari Union shuffled through digital tablets with 4 hands while 2 others took notes. The Velthari controlled most of the galaxy's trade and information networks. They could strangle a world's economy with a single regulation. The third figure made Sarah's skin crawl despite years of diplomatic training. Oracle Althanan of the ancient Zephyrian collective sat perfectly still, her 3 eyes never blinking. The Zephyrians claimed to be the oldest spacefaring race in the galaxy. They spoke in riddles and treated younger species like children who needed constant guidance. Ambassador Chen, War Prime Kethaval's voice boomed across the chamber. The Council has reached a decision regarding Earth's continued membership. Sarah kept her face neutral. She had expected this day would come eventually. Humanity had been making too many waves, expanding too fast, refusing to follow the unwritten rules that kept the galaxy stable. The Council recognizes that humanity is young. Prime Minister Veltora spoke without looking up from her tablets. Young species often act without understanding the consequences of their actions. The Council is prepared to offer guidance. Oracle Althanun's 3 eyes focused on Sarah with disturbing intensity. The children of Terra have grown bold in their brief time among the stars. Bold but unwise. Wisdom comes only through proper instruction. Sarah had heard enough diplomatic double talk to know where this was heading. What exactly is the Council proposing? War Prime Kethaval leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Sarah's position. Earth's military expansion will cease immediately. Your fleet strength will be reduced by 80%. All human colonies beyond your home system will accept Council oversight. Furthermore, Prime Minister Veltora continued, Earth will pay reparations for disrupting established trade networks. Your species has been undercutting legitimate businesses with unreasonable offers. Sarah almost laughed. The legitimate businesses were cartels that had been overcharging smaller species for centuries. Human traders had simply offered better deals. Oracle Althanun's voice carried the weight of millennia. Earth will accept junior membership status. Humans will serve in advisory roles only. No voting rights on Council matters for the next 50 years. This will provide time for your species to learn proper galactic citizenship. The chamber fell silent. Sarah could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching her, waiting for Earth's response. Some species looked sympathetic. They remembered when the Council had given them similar ultimatums. Others seemed eager to see humanity brought down a peg. Sarah thought about the message she had received from Earth just hours before this meeting. President Martinez had been clear. Do what you think is right, Sarah. We trust your judgment. But remember, we didn't crawl out of caves and reach for the stars just to bow down to anyone. The Council's offer is generous, Sarah said slowly. Several representatives leaned forward, expecting Earth's capitulation. However, I need to clarify something. Are these demands or suggestions? War Prime Kethaval's 4 eyes narrowed. The Council does not make suggestions to junior species. These are the terms of Earth's continued participation in galactic civilization. And if Earth refuses these terms, Prime Minister Veltora finally looked up from her tablets. Then Earth would be choosing isolation. No access to Council trade networks. No protection under Council law. No technological exchanges. No diplomatic relations with any Council member species. Oracle Althanan's 3rd eye, the one that supposedly saw the future, opened wide. The young race would find the void between stars very cold and very empty. Sarah nodded slowly. She had represented Earth in this chamber for 3 years, trying to find common ground, trying to build bridges between humanity and the established galactic community. She had believed that patience and diplomacy could overcome the Council's prejudices. But looking around the chamber now, seeing the smug satisfaction on so many alien faces, Sarah realized the truth. The council didn't want humanity as partners. They wanted humans as servants, I see, Sarah said. The council has made its position very clear. Then you accept the terms? War Prime Kethaval asked. Sarah straightened her shoulders and looked directly at the three most powerful beings in the galaxy. The United Earth Federation respectfully withdraws from the Galactic Council. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the chamber erupted into chaos. Species representatives began shouting in dozens of languages. Some aliens jumped to their feet. Others activated communication devices to contact their home governments. The translator system struggled to keep up with the overlapping conversations. War Prime Kethaval slammed one of his massive fists on his desk, creating a sound like thunder. Silence! The chamber quieted, but tension crackled in the air like electricity. Ambassador Chen, the War Prime's voice was dangerously low. Perhaps you misunderstood the consequences of refusing council authority. I understand them perfectly, Sarah replied. Earth chooses to make its own way among the stars. Prime Minister Veltora's four note-taking hands moved frantically. This is unprecedented. No species has ever voluntarily withdrawn from the council. The economic ramifications alone will be Earth's problem to solve, Sarah finished. Oracle Althanan stood for the first time since Sarah had known her. The ancient alien moved with surprising grace for someone who claimed to be thousands of years old. The children of Terra choose the path of exile, so be it. But remember this, young ambassador. The galaxy is vast and cold. Your species will learn the price of pride. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept her voice steady. Perhaps the galaxy will learn that humans are more resourceful than you think. War Prime Kethaval's laugh was like grinding metal. Resourceful? Your species has barely left its home system. You have 12 colonies and a few hundred ships. Without council technology and protection, you'll be lucky to survive a decade. We survived ice ages and world wars, Sarah said. We built our first starships with chemical rockets and nuclear fuel. We learned to thrive in environments that would kill most species. I think we'll manage. Prime Minister Veltora shook her head sadly. This is foolishness. Earth cannot stand alone against the galaxy. Earth won't be standing alone, Sarah said quietly. Wherever we go, whatever we do, we'll remember our friends. We'll remember the species that treated us fairly, and we'll remember the ones that didn't. Several smaller species representatives shifted uncomfortably. They depended on council protection, but they had also benefited from human trade and technology exchanges. Oracle Althanun's three eyes focused on Sarah with laser intensity. You speak of friends, child of Terra, but friendship requires wisdom and wisdom requires humility. Your species possesses neither. Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. You know what, Oracle? You might be right about the humility part. Humans have never been good at bowing down, but as for wisdom... She paused, looking around the chamber at faces both alien and familiar. I think wisdom is knowing when to walk away from a bad deal. The chamber erupted again, but this time Sarah didn't wait for quiet. She turned and began walking toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Ambassador Chen, War Prime Kethaval's voice boomed behind her. When your colonies are starving and your ships are breaking down, remember that the council offered you a place among civilized species. Sarah stopped at the chamber's massive doors and turned back one final time. And when you're wondering where humanity went, remember that we tried to do this the diplomatic way first. The doors sealed behind her with a soft hiss. Sarah stood in the corridor outside, suddenly alone after 3 years of constant alien presence. Her hands were shaking, she realized. What had she just done? Her communication device chimed with an incoming message from Earth. President Martinez's voice was calm but concerned. Sarah, we're getting reports that you've withdrawn from the council. Please confirm. Sarah activated her recorder. Confirmed, Madam President. The council's terms were unacceptable. They wanted to reduce our military by 80%, place our colonies under alien oversight and strip our voting rights for 50 years. Oh, and pay reparations for the crime of offering competitive prices. A pause. Then Martinez's voice came back, tinged with something that might have been relief. Then you made the right choice. Come home, Sarah. We have work to do. As Sarah walked through the council station's corridors toward the human diplomatic ship, she noticed something interesting. Several aliens nodded to her respectfully. Species representatives she recognized from smaller, less influential worlds. A few even looked like they wanted to say something but didn't dare in such a public place. Captain Rodriguez was waiting at the airlock, his face grim. "Ambassador, are you sure about this? Once we leave, there's no coming back." Sarah looked back down the corridor toward the chamber where she had just changed the course of human history. "Captain, my grandfather fought in World War III. My mother helped build the first Mars colony. My daughter is serving on a deep space exploration ship right now. Do you really think the Chen family is afraid of a little challenge?" Rodriguez smiled. "No, ma'am, I suppose not. Course for Earth?" "Course for Earth," Sarah confirmed. "And, Captain, set the long-range scanners to maximum sensitivity. If we're going to be on our own out here, I want to know everything that's happening in our neighborhood." As the human diplomatic vessel pulled away from the council station, Sarah stood at an observation window watching the massive structure shrink into the distance. Somewhere in that station, 47 alien species were probably arguing about what to do with the human problem. Let them argue, Sarah thought. Humans had survived extinction events, ice ages, plagues, and wars. They had built cities on every continent of Earth, established colonies on hostile worlds, and reached for the stars with nothing but determination and chemical rockets. Now, they would find out what humans could accomplish when the entire galaxy underestimated them. Sarah's communication device chimed again. This time it was her daughter, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Chen, calling from the deep space exploration ship Magellan. "Mom, I heard what happened. Are we really on our own now?" Sarah smiled as she looked out at the stars stretching endlessly in every direction. "Yes, sweetheart. We're on our own, just the way we like it." The human ship activated its jump drive and disappeared into hyperspace, carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. Behind them, the council began planning how to divide up former human space. They had no idea what they had just set in motion. 3 years had passed since Ambassador Sarah Chen walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. The Earth that Captain Marcus Torres returned to was not the same world that had sent him on his deep space reconnaissance mission 6 months ago. Marcus stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, looking down at the blue marble that had given birth to humanity. The planet looked the same from space, white clouds swirling over green continents and blue oceans. But Marcus knew that beneath those clouds everything had changed. The first year after the withdrawal had been chaos. When the Council's embargo took effect, it hit Earth like a sledgehammer. Alien technologies stopped working as licensing agreements expired. Trade ships found themselves turned away from stations they had visited for years. Human colonies beyond the Sol system were blockaded, their expansion grinding to a halt. The stock markets crashed. 3 major corporations went bankrupt in a single month. Food riots broke out in several cities as supply chains that depended on alien technology collapsed. The unemployment rate hit 30% as industries tied to galactic trade simply vanished overnight. Marcus remembered those dark months. He had been commanding deep space patrol missions then, watching helplessly as human ships limped home with failing alien components. Some colonies had to be evacuated entirely when their life support systems broke down and replacement parts became impossible to obtain. But humans, Marcus had learned, were stubborn creatures. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been working in her laboratory in New Geneva when the first alien shield generators failed. Instead of panicking, she had torn one apart to see how it worked. 2 months later, she had not only reverse-engineered the technology, she had improved it. The aliens were thinking too complex, Elena had explained to Marcus during his last visit to her lab. They built these shields to last forever, to handle every possible situation. But sometimes you just need something that works right now, today, for the problem you're actually facing. The new human shield generators were smaller, cheaper, and more efficient than their alien predecessors. They couldn't handle as many different types of attacks, but they were perfect for what humanity actually needed them to do. More importantly, they could be built entirely with materials and techniques that Earth controlled. Marcus pulled up the latest reports on his tablet. The Japanese-Brazilian consortium had achieved something the Council claimed was impossible: faster-than-light communications that didn't rely on the Council's network infrastructure. Their breakthrough had come from studying how human brains processed quantum-entangled particles during FTL jumps. It was messy, sometimes unreliable, but it worked. The Australian mining operations had made their own breakthrough. It turned out that human intuition for geology, That strange ability to feel where the good ore was hidden worked remarkably well on alien worlds. Council surveys had missed dozens of rich deposits that human prospectors found within weeks of looking, but the real surprise was happening in the colonies themselves. Marcus switched his display to show colony reports. New Shanghai on Kepler 442b had not only survived the blockade but was actually thriving. Cut off from expensive alien imports, the colonists had been forced to innovate. They were growing more food, manufacturing more goods, and solving problems that they had previously relied on Council technology to handle. The same pattern was repeating across human space. Forced to be self-sufficient, the colonies were becoming stronger, more innovative, more united than they had ever been during the Council years. Captain Torres? A voice behind him interrupted his thoughts. Marcus turned to see Dr. Yuki Tanaka approaching, her arms full of data tablets and what looked like mineral samples. Dr. Tanaka, Marcus nodded. I hear you've been making interesting discoveries out in the Titan shipyards. Yuki's eyes lit up with excitement.
Captain, you have to see this.
We've been analyzing the materials you brought back from your last reconnaissance mission. The quantum metallurgy results are incredible. Marcus had spent the last 6 months exploring regions of space that the Council had marked as empty or unsuitable for development. His ship, the Pathfinder, was specifically designed for long-range reconnaissance. Unlike most human vessels, it had been built entirely with Earth technology, making it immune to Council licensing restrictions. What Marcus had found in those empty regions was anything but empty. We've identified 17 systems with resources that don't appear in any Council database, Yuki continued, pulling up holographic displays of mineral compositions. But more importantly, we found materials that the Council doesn't even have words for. She showed him a crystal sample that seemed to shift colors as Marcus looked at it. This came from the asteroid belt in the Kepler 1649 system. When we subjected it to quantum field manipulation, it formed metallic structures that are stronger than anything in Council databases. And Captain, it only responds to human brainwave patterns. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean that alien telepaths can't manipulate it. HFY battle meld techniques don't work on it. Even Zephyrian precognitive abilities seem to be blocked by structures made from this material. It's like the universe gave us a natural defense against alien mental powers. Marcus thought about the implications. The Council species had always dismissed humans as mentally weak because they lacked telepathic abilities. But if humanity had stumbled onto materials that were immune to those same abilities, Doctor, how much of this material have we found? Enough to build a fleet, Yuki said quietly. A big fleet. Marcus was still absorbing this information when his communicator chimed. The message was from Admiral Lisa Park, who had been promoted to head Earth's Stellar Defense Forces after the withdrawal. All senior commanders report to strategic planning immediately. Priority Alpha. Marcus and Yuki made their way through Luna Station's corridors to the secure briefing room. The space was packed with Earth's top military and civilian leadership. Admiral Park stood at the front of the room, her expression grim. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem, Park began without preamble. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive Council fleet movements in the outer sectors. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to formally divide up former human space. She activated a holographic display showing the local region of the galaxy. Red indicators showed Council fleet positions. The HFY are massing near our former colonies in the Centauri region. The Velthari have moved administrative ships to establish permanent bureaucratic control over the trade routes we used to patrol. And the Zephyrians, she paused. The Zephyrians are claiming that their ancient texts predicted human expansion into specific systems. They're calling it a religious mandate to occupy those areas. Captain Torres studied the display. What about our colonists in those regions? Admiral Park's jaw tightened. Some have been relocated to Council-controlled facilities. Others have simply disappeared from all records. The Council claims they're providing proper guidance to human populations. The room erupted in angry voices. Marcus felt a cold fury building in his chest. These were people they had sworn to protect. Families, children, civilians who had done nothing but try to build new lives among the stars. What are our options? Asked General Patricia Wells, the head of Earth's ground forces. Limited, Park admitted. We have perhaps 200 ships capable of interstellar combat. The Council has over 10,000. spread across their various fleets. A direct confrontation would be suicide. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood up from her seat near the back. "Admiral, what if we're thinking about this wrong?" Park turned to her. "Explain." "The Council thinks we're isolated, cut off, weakening. They expect us to either surrender or slowly fade away. But what if we're not doing either of those things? What if we're getting stronger?" She gestured toward Dr. Tanaka. "Yuki's discoveries, the new shield technology, the breakthroughs in FTL communications. We're innovating faster now than we ever did as Council members. And Captain Torres's reconnaissance missions have shown us that there's an entire galaxy out here that the Council has ignored." Marcus nodded. "Dr. Vasquez is right. In my travels, I've encountered dozens of species that aren't Council members. Some are too small to matter to the major powers. Others are actively hiding from Council expansion. And some," he paused, "some are looking for allies." Admiral Park leaned forward. "What kind of allies?" "The Zarathi, for one," Marcus said. "They're a crystalline species that was conquered by the Council about 50 years ago. They're technically Council subjects now, but they hate it. Their entire culture is based on harmony and cooperation, but the Council uses them as forced laborers in mining operations." He pulled up images from his reconnaissance files. "They have technology the Council barely understands. Their ships are grown rather than built using some kind of crystal-singing technique. But more importantly, they remember what freedom was like." "Are you suggesting we make contact with these species?" Park asked. "I'm suggesting we already have," Marcus replied. "During my last mission, I made unofficial contact with several non-Council groups. The Zarathi are interested in an alliance, so are the Wanderer fleets. Nomadic traders who are sick of Council restrictions on their movements. There are others." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, President Martinez, who had been listening quietly from the back of the room, spoke up. "How long do we have before the Council makes their move permanent?" Park checked her reports. "Intelligence suggests they'll sign formal accords within 7 years. Once that happens, former human space will be officially divided between Council members. Any claims we might have made would become legally void under galactic law." 7 years, Martinez repeated. "That's not very long." Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. "Madam President, humans went from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than a century. We built thriving colonies on hostile worlds in decades. 7 years is plenty of time." "Time for what?" Park asked. "Time to show the galaxy that writing off humanity was the biggest mistake the Council ever made." Marcus looked around the room at Earth's leadership. 3 years ago, they had been diplomats and bureaucrats, trying to find humanity's place in an established galactic order. Now they were revolutionaries planning to reshape that order entirely. "Admiral," Marcus said, "I'd like permission to expand my reconnaissance operations. If we're going to build alliances, we need to know everything about potential partners." "Granted. Take whatever ships and crew you need." Dr. Tanaka raised her hand. "I'd like to accelerate the quantum metallurgy research. If we're going to need ships, we should build them with the best materials available." "Also granted. Elena, how quickly can your team scale up the new shield technology?" "Give me 6 months and unlimited resources and I can outfit 1,000 ships." President Martinez stood up slowly. "Ladies and gentlemen, 3 years ago we were told to choose between submission and isolation. We chose isolation. Now I think it's time to show the galaxy that isolation and defeat are not the same thing." As the meeting broke up, Marcus found himself standing next to Admiral Park. "Admiral, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you really think we can pull this off? Take on the entire Council?" Park was quiet for a long moment. "Captain, my grandmother was born in a refugee camp during the resource wars. My mother helped terraform Mars when everyone said it was impossible. My daughter is commanding a deep space exploration vessel right now, mapping regions that the Council claims don't exist." She turned to look at him directly. "The Council thinks they know what humans are capable of. They've seen us be diplomatic. They've seen us be cooperative. They've seen us try to fit into their system." She smiled, and it was not a particularly friendly expression. "They have no idea what humans are capable of when someone threatens our families." As Marcus left Luna Station and prepared for his next reconnaissance mission, he thought about Admiral Park's words. The Council had made a critical error in judgment. They had mistaken human diplomacy for human weakness. 7 years from now, they would learn the difference. The stars stretched endlessly ahead of the Pathfinder as it jumped to hyperspace. Somewhere out there, potential allies waited. Somewhere out there, the technology and resources needed to build a new kind of fleet could be found. And somewhere out there, the Council was making plans that assumed humanity would never be a threat again. Marcus smiled as the ship's quantum drive engaged. The Council was about to learn that assuming anything about humans was dangerous. Very dangerous indeed. 5 years after Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the galaxy had settled into a comfortable routine. Trade routes operated smoothly under Council oversight. The Kethavar Empire maintained order through strength. The Velthari Union processed endless bureaucratic forms with mechanical efficiency. The Zephyrian Collective meditated on the cosmic balance of all things. Everything was exactly as it should be. According to Council records, Ambassador Jen Tai of the Velthari Union reviewed her quarterly report on the human situation with satisfaction. Her 4 primary hands typed rapidly while her 2 secondary hands organized supporting documents. Status: stable, she dictated to her recording device. Human activity in former territorial claims has ceased entirely. Long-range sensors detect no human vessels in sectors previously claimed by the Earth Federation. Economic projections suggest complete technological collapse within the next 5 years. Recommendation: continue current embargo. Human petition for readmission anticipated within 1 standard galactic year. Gentai submitted her report and moved on to more important matters. The Council was preparing to formalize the partition of former human space, and there were thousands of bureaucratic details to arrange. Which species would control which systems? How to divide the mining rights? Where to establish new administrative stations? It was tedious work, but someone had to maintain galactic civilization. What Gentai didn't know was that 3,000 light-years away, Admiral Lisa Park stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station and watched the most ambitious construction project in human history take shape. The station itself was a marvel of engineering that didn't exist in any Council database. Built entirely from resources harvested from dead systems that the Council had never bothered to survey, New Geneva Station was larger than most planetary capitals. Its rotating sections provided artificial gravity for over 2 million inhabitants, most of them refugees from various Council-controlled worlds. Admiral, Captain Torres approached with his latest reconnaissance report. The Zarathi delegation has arrived. They're requesting permission to bring their harmony singers aboard. Lisa nodded. Granted. Have them escorted to Conference Room 7. The acoustic resonance there should be suitable for their communication methods. Torres paused. Ma'am, are you sure about this alliance? The Zarathi have been Council subjects for 50 years. What if this is some kind of loyalty test? Lisa turned from the observation window to face her old friend. Marcus, I've read your reports. The Zarathi have been used as slave laborers in Council mining operations for half a century. Their children are taken from their families and raised in educational facilities that strip away their cultural identity. Does that sound like a species that's loyal to the Council? No, ma'am. But it also sounds like a species that might be desperate enough to try anything, including betraying new allies. That's a fair point, Lisa admitted. But look at it from their perspective. They're crystal-based life forms whose entire culture is built around harmony and cooperation. The Council uses them as disposable labor because their physiology lets them work in environments that would kill most other species. What do they have to lose by allying with us? Torres pulled up holographic displays showing the latest intelligence reports. According to our contacts, the Zarathi have technology that could change everything. Their ships aren't built. They're grown from living crystal matrices. Their communication networks operate through harmonic resonance that travels faster than light, and their manufacturing capabilities could produce a fleet faster than anything the Council has ever seen, Lisa finished. I know, that's why we're taking the risk. They made their way through New Geneva Station's corridors toward the conference rooms. The station was a testament to human adaptability and the power of necessity. Cut off from Council technology and trade networks, humanity had been forced to innovate at a pace that surprised even themselves. Dr. Elena Vasquez's breakthrough in shield technology had been just the beginning. Her research team now occupied an entire section of the station, working on projects that pushed the boundaries of known physics. They had developed new forms of faster-than-light travel, energy weapons that could punch through any known armor, and defensive systems that could protect entire planets. But the real revolution was happening in the outer rings of the station, where Dr. Yuki Tanaka's quantum metallurgy labs were producing materials that didn't exist in any council database. The strange crystals that Captain Torres had discovered in empty systems had properties that seemed almost magical. They responded to human brainwaves. They were immune to most forms of energy manipulation, and they could be shaped into structures stronger than anything the council had ever built. "Admiral Park," a voice called from behind them. Lisa turned to see Dr. Sarah Chen approaching. The former ambassador had traded her diplomatic robes for a scientist's practical jumpsuit, but she still carried herself with the authority that had once represented Earth before the council. "Dr. Chen," Lisa smiled. "How are the Wanderer negotiations progressing?" Sarah's expression was cautiously optimistic. "Better than expected. Fleet Master Zara Ak is willing to commit 12 of her trade convoys to our alliance, but she wants assurances that we can protect them from council retaliation." "Can we? That depends on what the Zarathi are offering. If their technology is as advanced as Captain Torres believes." They entered Conference Room 7 to find one of the most beautiful sights Lisa had ever witnessed. 3 Zarathi harmony singers stood in the center of the room, their crystalline bodies catching and refracting the light in patterns that seemed to pulse with inner life. When they spoke, their voices created harmonics that resonated through the station's hull, making the walls themselves sing. "We greet the builders of the new harmony," the lead singer intoned. "Long have we dreamed of voices that sing freedom's song." Lisa stepped forward, feeling somewhat inadequate in the face of such elegant beings. "We greet the children of crystal and light. Earth offers friendship to those who would walk free among the stars." The second singer moved closer, and Lisa could see that their crystalline body contained what looked like star maps, constellation patterns that shifted and changed as she watched. "The oppressors believe us broken, our songs silenced. They know not that crystal remembers, that harmony endures. We have sung in secret for 50 of your years, preparing for this moment. What can you offer our alliance?" Sarah asked. The third singer raised what might have been arms, though their crystalline form was so fluid that it was hard to tell where one appendage ended and another began. "We offer the songs of creation. Our vessels grow from living crystal, shaped by harmony into forms that dance between stars. Our networks carry messages faster than light itself, connecting all who join our song." Captain Torres leaned forward. "How many ships could you produce?" "Ships?" The lead singer's harmonics carried what Lisa interpreted as amusement. "Human friend, we do not build ships. We sing new life into being. Give us raw materials in 6 months and we will grow you a fleet that moves like living music." Lisa felt her pulse quicken. "How large a fleet?" "As large as your dreams dare imagine. Our manufacturing is not limited by assembly lines or construction facilities. We sing matter into new forms, crystal into new purposes. The only limits are the materials you provide and the harmonies we can maintain." Sarah was taking rapid notes on her tablet. "What do you need from us in return?" The 3 singers moved closer together, their forms beginning to merge and separate in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When they spoke again, their voices created harmonics that made the entire room resonate like a musical instrument. "Freedom," they sang. "The right to raise our children in the old ways. The chance to sing our songs without fear and," they paused, their forms shimmering, "revenge against those who would use living beings as tools." Lisa understood. The Zarathi had been slaves for 50 years. They wanted more than just freedom. They wanted justice. "The council won't give up easily," she warned. "When they realize what we're building out here, they'll come in force." The lead singer's form brightened. "Let them come. They have forgotten that harmony can be fierce, that crystal can be sharp. We have prepared songs of war as well as peace." Over the next 6 hours, Lisa watched as humanity's growing alliance took shape. The Zarathi would provide manufacturing capabilities and faster-than-light communications. The Wanderer fleets would offer mobility and trade networks. A dozen smaller species, all of them refugees from council oppression or simply ignored by the major powers, would contribute specialized knowledge and resources. But the real surprise came when Dr. Tanaka presented her latest research. "Ladies and gentlemen," Yuki activated a holographic display showing a 3-dimensional map of the local galactic region. "We've discovered something that's going to change everything." The map showed the familiar pattern of stars and systems, but overlaid with a network of lines that pulsed with energy. "These are what we're calling void gates, ancient transportation networks that predate the council by millions of years. Lisa stared at the display. Transportation networks? Instantaneous travel across distances that would take months in hyperspace. The Council knows they exist. There are references in their historical databases, but they've never been able to operate them. Sarah leaned closer to the display. But we can? Yuki's smile was triumphant. Human intuition combined with Zarathi crystal singing. We've managed to activate 3 gates so far, and we're learning more with each attempt. These networks could give us instantaneous access to any region of the galaxy. The implications were staggering. With Void Gate technology, humanity's growing alliance could strike anywhere in Council space without warning. They could evacuate threatened populations, establish hidden bases, and coordinate attacks across impossible distances. Captain Torres was already thinking tactically. Admiral, if we can control even a few of these gates, we could move our entire fleet anywhere in the galaxy before the Council could respond. It's not just about military applications, Sarah added. These gates could revolutionize trade, communication, and exploration. We could establish a civilization that operates on completely different principles than the Council. The Zarathi singers had been listening to the conversation, their forms pulsing with harmonics that Lisa was beginning to recognize as excitement. The ancient songs speak of such networks, the lead singer said. Star paths that connect all things, bridges across the void. We thought them lost forever, but harmony finds its own way. Lisa stood quietly for several minutes, absorbing everything she had learned. When Earth had withdrawn from the Council 5 years ago, she had hoped they could build something better than what they were leaving behind. But she had imagined it would take centuries, maybe millennia. Now she realized they might do it in decades. Dr. Chen, she said finally, I want you to accelerate all diplomatic contacts. Every species we've identified as potential allies, every refugee population, every group that's been ignored or oppressed by the Council. Offer them what the Council never would, true partnership. Admiral, Torres interjected, shouldn't we be more careful? If the Council realizes what we're building. Lisa turned to face her staff, and for the first time in 5 years, she felt truly confident about humanity's future. Marcus, the Council has spent the last 5 years congratulating themselves on getting rid of the human problem. They've divided up our former territory, established their own colonies and systems we discovered, and convinced themselves that we're slowly fading away in isolation. She gestured toward the observation window, where the construction frames of New Geneva Station's latest expansion were visible against the stars. Let them think that. Let them believe their own reports. Because when we're ready, when we have allies, technology, and fleets that they never imagined possible, their shock will be absolute. Dr. Tanaka pulled up another display showing ship construction schedules. Admiral, at current production rates, we'll have 1,000 vessels operational within 18 months. With Zarathi crystal growing techniques and Void Gate deployment, we could have them positioned anywhere in the galaxy. How long until the Council formalizes their partition of human space? Sarah asked. 2 years, Torres replied. Intelligence suggests they'll sign the accords at a grand ceremony on Velthar Prime. Lisa smiled, and it was the kind of expression that had made her famous during the resource wars. Perfect. That gives us plenty of time to prepare a proper homecoming gift. As the meeting concluded and the various delegates returned to their ships or quarters, Lisa remained on the observation deck, looking out at the construction that never stopped. Ships were taking shape in the void, grown from crystal and forged from materials that the Council didn't know existed. Crews were training on vessels that moved like living things, using technology that bridged the gap between science and art. Somewhere in Council space, bureaucrats were filing reports that showed humanity in decline. Military analysts were calculating how former human territory should be redistributed. Diplomats were planning ceremonies to celebrate the peaceful resolution of the human situation. None of them had any idea what was building in the darkness between the stars. Lisa activated her communicator and connected to Earth's Strategic Command. President Martinez appeared on the holographic display, looking older but more determined than she had 5 years ago. Madam President, I have news. The alliance is coming together faster than we hoped. We should be ready to make our move within 2 years. Martinez nodded slowly. Admiral, are you absolutely certain about this course of action? Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back to the shadows. Ma'am, the council made their choice when they decided to treat us like children who needed constant supervision. They wanted us to disappear quietly into the void. Lisa gestured toward the construction outside. We've disappeared, all right, but we haven't been quiet. As she ended the call, Lisa thought about the path that had brought humanity to this point. 5 years ago, they had been junior partners in a galactic civilization that barely tolerated their existence. Now they were building something entirely new, something that could challenge the established order of the galaxy itself. The Council believed that power came from size, from age, from controlling established systems and trade routes. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous threats came from the places where nobody thought to look. Admiral Lisa Park stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, surrounded by holographic displays that showed a galaxy in motion. 7 years had passed since Earth's withdrawal from the Council, and the final phase of Operation Homecoming was about to begin. Admiral, Captain Torres approached with the latest intelligence reports. Council fleet movements confirm it. They're gathering for the formal partition ceremony on Velthar Prime in 3 months. Every major council leader will be present. Lisa studied the tactical displays. Hundreds of council ships were converging on the Velthari capital system, ostensibly for protection but really for show. It would be the largest gathering of council forces in decades, all of them celebrating what they believed was the permanent end of human expansion. Perfect. Status report on Operation Homecoming, Lisa commanded. The holographic displays shifted to show the current state of humanity's secret alliance. The numbers still amazed her even after 2 years of careful preparation. Phoenix-class dreadnoughts, 47 operational, 8 more coming online this week, reported Commander Sarah Chen, who had transitioned from diplomacy to fleet operations. Hermes-class destroyers, 312 operational. Prometheus-class carriers, 85 operational, each carrying a full wing of Valkyrie fighters. Lisa nodded. The Phoenix-class ships were the crown jewel of human engineering. Massive vessels built from the quantum metals that Dr. Tanaka's teams had discovered in the empty systems. Each one was more powerful than anything in the Council databases, incorporating 7 years of captured technology, reverse engineering, and pure human innovation. Zarathi crystal ships? Lisa asked. 637 growth ships operational, replied Harmony Singer Keshtal, the Zarathi liaison whose crystalline form had become a familiar sight in the command center. Each vessel sings with the voice of freedom, shaped by harmonies of war and peace alike. The Zarathi ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Grown rather than built, they were living vessels that could adapt to combat conditions in real time. Their hulls were composed of the same quantum crystals that made human ships so effective, but shaped by crystal singing techniques that made them incredibly resilient and surprisingly beautiful. Wanderer fleet status? Lisa continued. 12 trade convoys have been converted to mobile battle platforms, reported Fleetmaster Zara Ak via quantum communication link. Her people had transformed their massive trading vessels into something between aircraft carriers and mobile bases. Each convoy can support a full battle group and maintain them indefinitely in deep space. Lisa pulled up the Alliance composition displays. It was more than just numbers. It was a complete reimagining of how a galactic civilization could operate. The human ships provided the technological edge and the strategic planning. The Zarathi vessels offered manufacturing capabilities and faster-than-light communications that the Council couldn't intercept. The Wanderer fleets gave them mobility and logistics support across impossible distances. But those were just the major partners. Over the past 3 years, Dr. Chen's diplomatic efforts had brought dozens of smaller species into the alliance. Each contributed something unique. The Melodians provided cultural intelligence. The deep space miners offered knowledge of hidden resource deposits. The nomadic shepherds of the Outer Rim brought expertise in void warfare. What about the void gates? Lisa asked Dr. Tanaka. Yuki's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Admiral, we've activated 17 gate networks across the galaxy. The positioning gives us instantaneous access to every major council system, plus several regions they don't even know exist. She activated a galactic map showing the gate network in glowing lines of energy. The beauty is that the Council has never understood how the gates work. To them, they're just ancient artifacts. They have no idea we can use them to move entire fleets across the galaxy in minutes. Captain Torres leaned over the tactical displays. Admiral, the positioning looks good. We can hit Velthar Prime from 3 different directions simultaneously. And the Council sensors won't detect the fleet until we're already in system. Lisa nodded, but her expression was thoughtful. This isn't just about demonstrating our military capabilities. We need to send a message that resonates across the entire galaxy. What kind of message? Sarah asked. That there's an alternative to the Council's way of doing things. That cooperation can be more powerful than domination. That the galaxy is big enough for multiple approaches to civilization. She turned to address the entire command staff. People, we're not just planning a military operation here. We're announcing the birth of a new galactic order. Everything we do in the next 3 months will determine whether that order survives and thrives, or whether it dies in its cradle. General Patricia Wells stepped forward. She had spent the last 7 years building something that had never existed before. A truly integrated military force composed of dozens of different species, each contributing their unique strengths. Admiral, the ground forces are ready. If we need to secure Council installations, we can do it with minimal casualties. Our training exercises with Zerathi crystal shapers and Wanderer void specialists have created tactical capabilities that no one in Council space has ever seen. Lisa appreciated Patricia's confidence, but she hoped ground combat wouldn't be necessary. The goal wasn't to conquer the Council. It was to force them to acknowledge that humanity and its allies had the right to exist as equals. What about intelligence on Council capabilities? Lisa asked. Torres activated another display. Our deep cover operatives report that Council military doctrine hasn't changed significantly in 50 years. They're still thinking in terms of massive fleet engagements, territory control, and technological superiority through size and numbers. They have no experience fighting enemies who can appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning, added Commander Chen. Their entire defensive strategy is based on controlling space lanes and choke points. The void gates make that approach obsolete. Harmony singer Keshtal's crystalline form pulsed with harmonics that Lisa had learned to recognize as amusement. The Council's songs are old and rigid, bound by patterns that no longer serve. They cannot imagine harmonies they have never heard. Lisa understood what Keshatal meant. The Council's approach to warfare was based on their understanding of how galactic civilization worked. Large fleets moved slowly along established routes. Battles were fought for control of strategic systems. Victory belonged to whoever could bring the most firepower to bear on a single location. Humanity's approach was completely different. Small, fast fleets that could appear anywhere. Battles fought across multiple systems simultaneously. Victory achieved through coordination, adaptability, and technologies that the enemy didn't understand. Admiral, Dr. Tanaka interrupted her thoughts. There's something else you should know about the quantum crystal technology. Lisa turned to the physicist. What is it? We've discovered that the crystals have what we're calling resonance memory. They remember every configuration they've been shaped into, every harmony they've been exposed to. The longer we use them, the more adaptive they become. Meaning our ships are literally learning from experience. The Phoenix-class dreadnought that fought in the Kepler system engagement last month is now more effective against Kethvar battle tactics because its hull remembers that encounter. The technology is evolving. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. They were dealing with materials that seemed almost alive, technologies that adapted and grew stronger with use. No wonder the ancient civilizations that built the void gates had been so powerful. Are there any risks to using this technology? She asked. Dr. Tanaka hesitated. Admiral, honestly, we don't know. We're working with materials and principles that are completely outside our previous understanding. The crystals respond to human consciousness in ways that seem to violate several laws of physics. But so far no negative effects, none that we can detect. If anything, prolonged exposure to the quantum crystals seems to enhance human intuition and spatial reasoning. Our navigators report improved accuracy, our engineers show better problem-solving capabilities, and our tacticians demonstrate enhanced strategic thinking. Lisa filed that information away for future consideration. Right now, she had more immediate concerns. Final preparations, she announced. I want every ship, every crew, every system tested and ready within the next month. This is our one chance to announce ourselves to the galaxy. There won't be any do-overs. Over the next 4 weeks, New Geneva Station became a hive of activity. unlike anything in human history. Ships that had been growing in crystal gardens for months were finally completed and tested. Crews from dozens of different species trained together in simulators that recreated every known Council combat scenario. Engineers made final adjustments to technologies that pushed the boundaries of known science. Captain Marcus Torres spent those weeks commanding the reconnaissance fleet that would ensure the Council remained unaware of the gathering storm. His ships, built for stealth and speed, monitored every Council communication, tracked every fleet movement, and maintained the illusion that humanity had simply vanished into the void. Dr. Elena Vasquez's engineering teams worked around the clock to ensure that every piece of technology would function perfectly under combat conditions. The new shield generators, the quantum-enhanced weapons, the crystal-based communication systems. Everything had to work flawlessly. But perhaps most importantly, Dr. Sarah Chen coordinated with resistance movements across Council space. Not every species was happy under Council rule. Many smaller civilizations chafed under regulations that favored the major powers. Others had been conquered and absorbed against their will. When humanity returned, it wouldn't be as isolated outcasts. It would be as leaders of a coalition that represented the hopes and dreams of every species that had ever looked up at the stars and wanted to be free. 2 weeks before the Council ceremony, Lisa received a message that changed everything. Admiral, Captain Torres's voice came through the quantum communication system with unusual urgency. We've made contact with someone you need to hear from. The holographic display activated, showing a figure that made Lisa's breath catch. It was War Champion Threxnel, one of the most decorated military leaders in the Kethvar Empire. Admiral Park? The massive alien's voice carried respect that she had never expected from a Kethvar warrior. I greet you as one who has seen the strength of human honor in battle. Lisa recovered her composure quickly. War Champion Threxnel, this is unexpected. I served in the Council forces that blockaded your colonies 7 years ago, Threxnel continued. I witnessed how your people evacuated civilians under fire, how they fought to protect the weak rather than to claim glory. This is not the way of conquest, it is the way of honor. What are you proposing? The alien warrior leaned forward. I have served the Council for 40 years, believing that strength and order were the highest virtues. But strength without honor is mere brutality, and order without justice is mere tyranny. I offer my services and those of warriors who think as I do to your cause. Lisa stared at the display. A Kethvar war champion was offering to defect. Not just any war champion, but one of their most respected military leaders. How many warriors are we talking about? She asked. 17 battle groups, nearly 2,000 ships. All of us veterans who have seen too much unnecessary cruelty, too many conquered peoples ground under the Council's heel. The implications were staggering. With Kethvar defectors fighting alongside them, humanity's alliance would have military expertise that matched anything the Council could field. Why should we trust you? Lisa asked bluntly. Threxnel's 4 eyes met hers steadily. Because Admiral Park, honor recognizes honor. Your people could have fled into the void and been forgotten. Instead, you chose to return for those who cannot defend themselves. This is the way of true warriors. Lisa made her decision. War Champion, welcome to the Alliance. We'll need detailed intelligence on Council fleet dispositions and tactical doctrines. You shall have everything I know, Admiral, and you shall have warriors who remember what it means to fight for something greater than conquest. As the communication ended, Lisa looked around the command center at her staff. Human, Zarathi, Wanderer, and now Kethvar faces looked back at her with expressions of determination and hope. In 1 month, they would announce their return to a galaxy that thought they had disappeared forever. They would show the Council that humanity hadn't been weakened by isolation. It had been forged into something stronger. The final message went out across the Alliance fleet. Operation Homecoming begins in 30 days. All ships, all crews, all Allied forces prepare for immediate deployment. We're going home. Admiral Lisa Park stood at the observation window of New Geneva Station one last time, watching the greatest fleet in human history prepare for departure. 1,000 warships floated in formation around the station, their hulls gleaming with quantum crystal reinforcement, their crews representing dozens of species united by a common dream of freedom. Tomorrow they would begin their journey through the void gates to Velthar Prime. Tomorrow the galaxy would discover that reports of humanity's disappearance had been greatly exaggerated. Tomorrow, The Council would learn what humans could accomplish when the entire galaxy underestimated them. Lisa smiled as she watched the fleet's formation lights pulse in perfect synchronization. After 7 years of preparation, it was time to come home. The great orbital station above Velthar Prime had never hosted a gathering of this magnitude. Representatives from all 47 Council species filled the ceremonial chambers, while their fleets maintained protective formations throughout the system. Today would mark the final resolution of what history would call the human problem. Prime Minister Veltora of the Velthari Union stood at the ceremonial podium, her 4 hands arranging the documents that would formally divide former human space among the established powers. The paperwork was perfect, as all Velthari bureaucracy demanded. Every system catalogued, every resource allocation calculated to the smallest decimal, every legal precedent properly cited. Honored delegates, her voice carried across the vast chamber. Today we gather to witness the final chapter of an unfortunate episode in galactic history. 7 years ago, the species known as humanity chose isolation over cooperation, exile over wisdom. Today we ensure that their former territories serve the greater good of galactic civilization. War Prime Kethval of the Kethvar Empire rose from his seat, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. The humans showed promise as warriors, but they lacked the discipline to serve the greater order. Their former colonies will be better managed under proper authority. Oracle Althanan of the Zephyrian Collective remained seated, but her 3 eyes opened in unison as she spoke. The young race chose their path. The galaxy has grown more harmonious in their absence. Perhaps in another century their descendants might petition for readmission under appropriate supervision. Scattered throughout the chamber, representatives from smaller species nodded respectfully, though some seemed less enthusiastic than others. The Melodians had lost their most profitable trading partner when humanity withdrew. The deep space miners remembered human prospectors who had shared their knowledge freely. The frontier colonies still spoke of human engineers who had helped them solve problems that Council bureaucracy had ignored. But none of them dared to voice objections. The Council's decision was final. Outside the ceremonial chamber, the largest fleet in Council history maintained protective formations. 300 Kethvar battleships provided the heavy military presence. 500 Velthari administrative vessels ensured proper logistical support. The Zephyrian contingent was smaller, but no less significant. Their ancient dreadnoughts represented technologies that other species could barely comprehend. Additional ships from dozens of member species filled the outer defensive perimeters. By any measure, it was an overwhelming display of Council power and unity. Admiral Thane of the Kethvar Navy stood on the bridge of his flagship, reviewing sensor displays that showed empty space in every direction. His ships had been conducting long-range sweeps for weeks, searching for any sign of human activity. They had found nothing. "Status report," Thane commanded. "All sectors clear, Admiral." His tactical officer reported. "Long-range sensors detect no unusual activity within 50 light-years of the system. The humans appear to have truly vanished into the Outer Rim territories." Thane nodded with satisfaction. He had opposed the decision to let humanity withdraw 7 years ago, preferring a direct military solution. But perhaps the Council's approach had been correct. The humans had simply faded away into irrelevance as the bureaucrats had predicted. In the ceremonial chamber, Prime Minister Veltora began reading the formal articles of partition. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, the systems formerly claimed by the human species are hereby redistributed as follows. She never finished the sentence. The station's proximity, alarms began screaming across every communication channel. On the massive view screen that dominated one wall of the chamber, space itself seemed to tear open. The first void gate activated just outside the system's defensive perimeter, and through it came something that no one in the chamber had ever seen before. A human dreadnought emerged from the swirling energy, but it was massive beyond any ship in Council databases. Its hull gleamed with crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with inner light, and its weapon configurations were completely unknown. Then came another, and another. Captain Marcus Torres, now commanding the UEF Retribution, opened communications on all Council frequencies. His image appeared on every screen in the system, calm, professional, and completely confident. "This is the United Earth Federation." His voice carried across space to reach every ship, every station, every shocked delegate in the ceremonial chamber. "We've come home." The second void gate opened. Then the third. Within minutes, formations of ships were emerging from rifts in space that the Council had never learned to control. Phoenix-class dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the Council fleets. Hermes-class destroyers moving with impossible grace. Prometheus-class carriers launching fighter wings that flew in patterns that seemed to defy physics. But it wasn't just human ships. Sarathi crystal vessels phased through the dimensional barriers, their living hulls singing harmonics that could be felt through every ship in the system. Wanderer fleet platforms emerged like floating cities, bristling with weapons and defensive systems that incorporated the best of dozens of different technologies. And perhaps most shocking of all, HFY warships bearing the insignia of war champion Threxnol took positions alongside the human fleet. Admiral Thane stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. In less than 10 minutes, his overwhelming defensive force had been outnumbered 3-1 by vessels that shouldn't exist, using technology that the Council didn't understand, led by species that were supposed to be Council subjects or extinct entirely. "All ships," he managed to command. "Battle stations. Prepare to repel invasion force." But even as he gave the order, Thane knew it was hopeless. The enemy fleet had appeared without warning, in perfect formation, obviously coordinated through communication systems that his ships couldn't intercept. They had achieved tactical superiority before the Council forces even knew they were under threat. Admiral Lisa Park's voice echoed from the flagship UEF Indomitable, reaching every ship in the system. "To the Galactic Council fleet, stand down your weapons and prepare to receive communications. We have not come here to conquer, but to reclaim our place among the stars." In the ceremonial chamber, chaos reigned. Species representatives were shouting in dozens of languages. Emergency communication systems were overloaded with conflicting reports, and the three most powerful beings in the galaxy stood frozen in shock. Prime Minister Veltora's four hands moved frantically across her control interfaces, trying to make sense of intelligence reports that contradicted everything her bureaucracy had told her for 7 years. "This is impossible," she muttered. "Humans lack the technology for instantaneous fleet deployment. They have no allies capable of this kind of coordination. Our reports show—" "Your reports," interrupted a familiar voice, "show exactly what we wanted them to show." Ambassador Sarah Chen walked into the chamber, but she wore the uniform of an Earth Federation admiral now. Behind her came representatives of species that the Council had written off as irrelevant: Zarathi harmony singers, Wanderer fleet masters, deep space miners, frontier colonists, and dozens of others. "Admiral Chen," War Prime Kethval's voice was a dangerous growl. "You were declared persona non grata 7 years ago. Your presence here violates Council law." "I prefer Admiral Park's description," Sarah replied calmly. "We respectfully withdraw our withdrawal." Oracle Althanon stood slowly, her 3 eyes focusing on Sarah with uncomfortable intensity. "The young race returns in strength. This was not foreseen." "Maybe your foresight isn't as reliable as you thought," Sarah said. "Or maybe you just stopped paying attention to the right things." She gestured toward the massive view screen, which now showed the full scope of humanity's return. 1,000 warships held perfect formation around the Velthari capital, their weapons powered but not targeted, their crews waiting for orders that would determine the future of galactic civilization. 7 years ago, you offered us a choice, Sarah continued. Submit to Council authority or face isolation. We chose isolation. Today we're here to offer you a choice, Prime Minister Veltora found her voice. What? What are you proposing? Join us in building a galaxy where strength serves freedom instead of oppression, where diversity drives innovation instead of conformity, where every species has the right to determine its own destiny. War Prime Kethval's laugh was like grinding metal. You think your little fleet can challenge the entire Council? We have 10,000 ships across the galaxy. You have 10,000 ships scattered across the galaxy, Sarah corrected. We have 1,000 ships here right now, supported by technologies and alliances that you never knew existed. To demonstrate her point, Sarah activated a communication link that connected to alliance forces across the galaxy. On the view screen, images appeared from dozens of systems simultaneously. Human and Zarathi ships were liberating mining colonies where slave labor had been used for decades. Wanderer fleets were escorting refugee convoys to safety in regions beyond Council control. Even within Council space, resistance movements were revealing themselves, emboldened by humanity's return. "The galaxy is bigger than your council," Sarah announced. "There are hundreds of species that you've ignored, conquered, or dismissed as irrelevant. Many of them have been waiting for someone to show them that there's an alternative to your way of doing things." As if to underscore her point, communication requests began flooding in from across the galaxy. Species representatives who had remained silent in the ceremonial chamber were now speaking up, some demanding to know more about the human alliance, others openly declaring their intention to withdraw from council authority. The Melodian delegate stood first, her chromatic skin shifting through colors that Sarah recognized as expressions of hope and determination. "The Melodian Collective formally requests admission to the Earth Federation Alliance." The Deep Space miners followed. "The Asteroid Belt Confederacy stands with humanity." Within minutes, a dozen species had publicly abandoned the Council in favor of humanity's alternative. Admiral Thane's voice crackled over the communication system from his flagship. "Prime Minister, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 of our own battle groups. War Champion Threxnel has broadcast proof that he and his forces joined the Human Alliance voluntarily." War Prime Kethaval turned toward the viewscreen with disbelief. "Threxnel, you swore an oath of loyalty to the Empire." War Champion Threxnel's massive form appeared on the display, standing on the bridge of his flagship alongside human and Zarathi officers. "I swore an oath to defend honor and protect the weak. For 40 years I believed the Council embodied those principles. I was wrong. The humans fight not for conquest but for liberation," Threxnel continued. "They build alliances based on respect rather than fear. They offer partnership to species that the Council treats as subjects. This is the way of true warriors." Oracle Althanan's third eye closed slowly. The patterns shift. The future changes. What was certain becomes uncertain. "The future was never as certain as you pretended," Sarah replied. "You just stopped listening to voices that disagreed with you." Prime Minister Veltora was frantically reviewing legal documents, searching for precedents that might help her understand what was happening. "Even if we accepted your proposal, how could we trust species that have rebelled against lawful authority?" "The same way the Council earned trust originally," Sarah said, "by proving that our way works better than the alternatives." She gestured toward holographic displays that showed the growing alliance in action. Zarathi crystal ships were providing humanitarian aid to disaster-stricken worlds. Wanderer fleets were establishing trade routes that benefited smaller species. Human engineers were sharing technological innovations freely, instead of hoarding them for profit. "Look around this chamber," Sarah continued. "How many species joined the Council willingly, and how many were conquered or coerced? How many of your member species actually have meaningful voices in Council decisions?" The silence that followed was telling. Everyone in the chamber knew that the Council was dominated by the three major powers, with smaller species serving essentially as window dressing for decisions made in advance. "What we're offering," Sarah said, "is a galaxy where the Melodian Collective has as much say in interstellar policy as the Kethvar Empire, where the asteroid miners have as much right to determine their future as the Velthari bureaucracy, where even small colonies and nomadic fleets can participate as equals in galactic civilization." War Prime Kethaval's four eyes narrowed dangerously. "And if the Council rejects your proposal?" Sarah's expression hardened. "Then you'll discover that 7 years of isolation taught humanity how to fight wars that the Council has never imagined. We can appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. We can coordinate attacks across impossible distances. We have allies you don't know about and technologies you don't understand." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "But we'd prefer not to fight at all. We'd rather spend our energy building something better than what currently exists." Admiral Park's voice came through the communication system from the human flagship. "Council representatives have 15 minutes to respond. After that, we begin Phase 2 of our homecoming." Prime Minister Veltora's bureaucratic mind was racing through possibilities, calculating odds, trying to find a solution that preserved her authority while acknowledging the new reality. What would this alliance mean for existing Council infrastructure? Trade agreements? Administrative systems? "Existing agreements between willing partners would be honored," Sarah replied. "But forced compliance ends today. Every species gets to choose its own path." Oracle Althanan spoke softly, but her words carried across the silent chamber. "The young race has grown wise in exile. Perhaps it is time for the old order to learn new songs." War Prime Kethaval looked around the chamber at faces both alien and familiar. Some showed fear, others excitement. A few displayed the calculating expressions of politicians trying to determine which way the wind was blowing. "If we accept this proposal," he said slowly, "what guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply become the new dominant power?" Sarah smiled. "The same guarantee that any democracy provides, that power belongs to everyone, not just to the strongest. The alliance we're proposing doesn't have a single leader or ruling species. It has principles that everyone agrees to follow." She activated a holographic display showing the alliance charter that had been developed over 7 years of careful negotiation. Every member species has voting rights. Every member species contributes according to their abilities and receives according to their needs. And every member species retains the right to withdraw if they're not satisfied with how things are working. Unlike council membership, she added pointedly, alliance membership is genuinely voluntary. The 15-minute deadline approached with agonizing slowness. Around the galaxy, council forces were discovering that their enemies could strike anywhere without warning, that their communication networks could be disrupted by technologies they didn't understand, that their assumed superiority was based on outdated assumptions about how wars were fought. But the alliance forces weren't conquering territory or destroying infrastructure. They were liberating populations that wanted to be free, protecting species that couldn't protect themselves, and offering partnership to anyone willing to embrace genuine cooperation. With 30 seconds left on the deadline, Prime Minister Veltora made her decision. The Velthari Union requests negotiations regarding potential alliance membership. The chamber erupted in discussion, but War Prime Kethaval's voice cut through the noise. The Kethvar Empire will also negotiate, but we demand assurance that warrior traditions will be respected under any new arrangement. All cultural traditions will be respected, Sarah assured him, as long as they don't involve conquering or oppressing other species. Oracle Althanan stood once more, her 3 eyes opening in sequence. The Zephyrian Collective will observe these negotiations with interest. Perhaps the young race's vision of the future is clearer than our ancient sight. As the formal ceremony collapsed into impromptu alliance negotiations, Admiral Park watched from the bridge of the Indomitable. The galaxy would never be the same. Where once the Council ruled through fear and tradition, now there was an alternative based on cooperation and mutual respect. "Admiral," Captain Torres approached with the latest reports. "We're receiving alliance applications from 43 different species or political entities. The Council's authority is collapsing across half the galaxy." Lisa nodded, but her expression was thoughtful. "Marcus, make sure our people understand we're not trying to replace the Council's tyranny with our own. We're trying to build something that's genuinely better. And if some species prefer the old way, then they're free to maintain their current arrangements, as long as they don't try to force those arrangements on others." As the human fleet maintained its protective formation around Velthar Prime, Lisa reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. 7 years ago, Earth had been a junior partner in a galactic civilization that barely tolerated human existence. Today, humanity was offering a vision of the future that gave every species the chance to determine its own destiny. The stars had always belonged to those brave enough to claim them. Today, humanity and its allies had claimed not just their share of space, but their right to help shape how galactic civilization would develop. On the planet below, alien children were looking up at the sky and seeing something their parents had never imagined. A galaxy where being small or different or strange didn't mean being conquered or ignored. Admiral Lisa Park smiled as she watched the first formal alliance ceremonies begin on the massive space station. After 7 years in exile, humanity had finally come home. But they hadn't come home alone, and they hadn't come home to surrender. They had